and welcome to a game of two halves. Here's what we have coming up. Patrick Biolwas goes deep into detail about esports in Wales, and be advised as student journalist Sam Hill recounts a nasty injury. That and much more to come. But first, your latest sporting stories across Wales. Cardiff Council have announced the development plans for a destination skate park in Llanrumney. It is set to be an inclusive space that supports Cardiff's vibrant skate culture, as well as Wales's wider goals in sustainability and Olympic competition. The World Championships of Darts is set to begin in 2 weeks and will have 6 Welshmen in it. Nick Kenny, Robert Owen, Rhys Griffin and Jim Williams will all compete in the first round, whilst Gerwyn Price and Johnny Clayton are seeded in the last 32. The FAW revealed that Wales's home leg in the 2025 Euro Championship playoff final broke records. The team played in front of a crowd of over 16,000, the largest Wales women have ever seen. And third-year student Jordan Jones visited Gwalior United to find out what the news meant to a club dedicated to women's football in Wales.
Mae'n arbennig bod y tîm pêl-droed merched Cymru wedi neud mor dda. Ethon ni fel tîm Gwalior gyda staff a chwaraewyr, ethon ni gyd i weld gêm efo'n Slovacia, a mae'r ffaith bod nhw'n trwyddo i'r rownd yn awr yn arbennig. A mae'r ffaith bod cymaint o bobl wedi mynd i gyfrannu tocynnau i weld y gêm yn dangos pa mor gryf yw merched Cymru nawr o ran y tîm pêl-droed, a wrth gwrs ni'n gobeithio bod nhw'n trwyddo i'r Euros.
I think it's massive. I think if you look at some of the numbers that were being banded around, it wasn't that long ago. They were playing at Spitty Park, where we play, with 500 people. So there's a nice storyline there, isn't it, actually? That they played there many years ago with 500 people. Now they're getting 15, 16, 17,000 probably on the night. That could be our journey and our story. I think what it does do is very simply show you the appetite that there is for women's football, and specifically in Wales. And I think the more games like we can have on Friday evening in front of those, bumper crowds, I think it helps everybody. It helps Gwalior, it helps Cardiff City ladies, Swansea ladies, Wrexham ladies, helps all of these ladies teams, because what we need to do is we need to raise awareness. We need to show these young women and girls, that if you can see it, you can be it. So there is another Jess Fishlock out there somewhere, and having them watch Jess on Friday evening is massive. So the more people we can get to see the game, to be aware of the game, to understand that there is, a high quality level of football played by women and girls is massive.
Yeah, I think as the game as a whole, it's a real indication as to, you look at all of the national teams, how the attendances are growing, kind of month by month, camp by camp, which is obviously really positive for the women's game as a whole. I think for the women's national team of Wales, it's a huge step forward, and fantastic for them to be playing in a stadium which is going to be, full and very noisy, I would imagine, over the next game. The crowd, or the crowds that are growing, and the media exposure that the national teams and the women's game is attracting now on a daily basis is fantastic, and I think it's certainly a different game to the one that I joined 10 years ago.
Jane Ludlow won 352 caps for Arsenal and managed the Welsh women's team for 7 years. We caught up with Jane to find out her thoughts on the ever-changing landscape of the women's game.
At the time you were playing for Arsenal, as a proud Welsh woman, do you think that you understood at the time the impact you might have on young women in Wales who would want to play football?
No, probably not, to be fair. It was very much, as an athlete, you have a very selfish mindset in waking up every day, getting through your routine, because as an athlete, it's very routine orientated in a sense of, you get up, you train each day, you eat well, you sleep, etc. So I think sometimes, especially when I was a younger athlete, you're in a bubble constantly, and there was very few times where you'd kind of come out of that bubble, because you'd be seeing the impact in some shape or form, whether it was representing the club in some capacity, or whether it was from an international perspective, or coming back and going up to my old school, etc. There were those moments occasionally, but they weren't probably frequent enough, to be fair. you do what you do because you love it. Some people would pick some fights to throw themselves into to try and make things change. And there were many of our generation that did pick those fights to a certain extent and try and influence others to make the changes longer term. But look, we're 25 years down the line and we're seeing the changes that thankfully have come. There's more still to come, but it was, if you look at the older generation of players, on a daily basis, we were probably doing things, trying to influence others, whether that was on the pitch or off the pitch, to try and make those changes happen. Right now, the difference is that elite players have bigger profiles. They have social media they can utilise. They have far bigger networks. So change is happening quicker.
Next up, Patrick Biolwas firmly believes that esports will be Wales' #1 sport in the future. We heard what he had to say.
So there's sort of 3 areas that I'm involved in. The longest serving one obviously is a former professional player. I've come out of sort of retirement unofficially in the esports sector to come back into the Wales setup as the team manager for football games across the country. I oversee national selection, working with clubs and liaising with governing bodies across and in relation to football games across the country. I am the team principal for the Sea Dragons esports team, which is an esports team that I founded along with some of the members of Scout Edge Analytics. And we aim to be one of the first fully data-driven esports teams, not just in Wales but in the world, competing on the international level. And some of the numbers already being thrown about in the world are just phenomenal, astronomical. That's the only word that can really be used to describe it. And Wales are already in a very good position with the fact that there's an esports governing body, there's the Welsh Esports League, there's several teams already in the process of not just competing in the league currently, but in the process of becoming very well-established teams in Europe. Obviously, there's some big names that have come out of Wales over the last few, over the last decade or so. Tadpole being the big name in Rocket League, went on to go compete at a very high level and then coach at Resolve for several years. Foundations have been established, but what is very good to see is that it's continuing to rise. We are very much on an upwards trajectory, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I'd go as far as to say financially, it could, at least especially in Wales, it could overtake football financially. Don't quote me on the numbers, but last time I checked, the esports industry was probably worth something like 4 times the movie industry, which obviously is another massive domain. I mean, yes, there's a lot of money in football, but there's also a lot of money in esports. I mean, it's got one of the highest continual growth rates per year that I've ever seen. I mean, it's something like 25% increase per year. Yes, football continues to grow, especially with inflation. As long as it's enjoyable, it will continue to grow. But as far as I'm aware, football sits at around 2, 3, 4%, whereas esports has held a continual figure around 25% annual increase for what the industry is worth every year. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. It will get there, and it will, at some point, very potentially overtake football if it doesn't end up merging with football altogether because of the industry dominance that they both seem to be having at the moment.
Sam Hill is a second-year sports journalism student at USW, who also plays football in the Bucks League. During a recent game against Cardiff Met, Sam sustained a nasty eye injury, which caused the area around his eye to swell. We caught up with Sam, who told us what can happen when a journalist takes to the field.
I was at Cardiff Met. We had a match for the uni here, played for the second team. We put us on a pretty nasty grass pitch. Obviously, we had the flooding and stuff, so it's pretty boggy. And then the next thing I know, I've been headbutted by the goalie, winning a header, yeah.
So you are a journalist on the course, but you're also a footballer?
Yeah, I mean, some will say this is a lesson learned to keep off the pitch and stay pitch side. But yeah, I like to play the football, particularly for the uni. I think it's an important kind of social part of the uni experience for me. So the ball was just outside the box, kind of bouncing quite high. I've gone up for it, he's gone up for it. I've jumped a little bit higher, I've got to the ball first, and then supposedly I imagine my head is then where he expected the ball to be, because I've headed it up. So he's then basically just headed my face on the eyebrow to try and header the ball clear, to which he's got a pretty nasty cut in his hairline, and I've come away with a small golf ball head into my eyebrow.
And just finding what difficulties as a media person does a football-related injury cause?
This one, quite a lot. I can't particularly read. I had to do a presenting job yesterday. I had to get someone else in to do that for a panel event because I wouldn't have been able to take questions from the crowd because, well, you know, I couldn't see them. I've got a podcast on Monday, so I'm hoping by then it's a little bit clear and I'll be able to at least read my notes.
Eleanor Clifton is a first-year sports journalism student here at USW. We are delighted to welcome Eleanor to the show. Eleanor, thanks for joining us today. And just maybe give a quick explanation on why you joined the course. Was there a particular sport behind your reasoning to join the USW?
Well, I've always loved sport growing up. Me and my parents have always watched football, Formula One, MotoGP, and I guess because I want a career in Formula One, I want to be part of the media, and I thought USW provided the best opportunities to create the networks to be able to get my foot in the door to then reach my own goal.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about you were watching football and MotoGP as you were growing up. Was there a particular reason why you maybe headed into the world of Formula One?
Again, Formula One was always on every weekend in my house. My mum is a massive fan of it, and so is my granddad before he passed. So I think it's kind of just want to live on his legacy with enjoying it, and it is just a fun sport to watch, really. It was the high speeds and all the drama involved with it, so yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of now female presenters and people involved in Formula One. If you look at Sky Sports and things like that, was there anyone that you kind of aspired to as you were growing up?
Not really, because even though I'm only 19, there wasn't many women on the screen presenting when I was growing up. So I suppose for me, wanting to be in a male-dominated industry, I want to be able to be that person on the screen that other young girls can look at and show that it's nothing to be scared of. They have just as much of every opportunity they have as every male in the industries that they want to go into. Yeah,
and how do you kind of balance that in a way? Because obviously the industry, over the years has been such a male-dominated industry. As someone that wants to particularly go into the industry one day, how do you kind of cope with that, I suppose? I'm not really sure, to be fair. I mean, I didn't really see much female representation in Formula One. So I suppose it's just trying to, again, one of these things, break down barriers and just show that it doesn't matter who you are. You've got every opportunity you can. You just obviously got nowhere to look, get your networks, same as everyone else, I suppose. Yeah, and what do you expect over the next couple of years? Obviously, just starting out during your first year on the course, where do you kind of see the next kind of 2.5 years go? I suppose for me, myself, trying to just gain as much experience as I can through my course and obviously any work placements and stuff that I do. And I hope to see, again, more females in Formula One. So there is a massive push as of now. So hopefully by the time I finish here, there'll be a lot more women presenting, getting involved, potentially even having one of the 20 spots on the grid, which will really be a massive achievement for everyone. Yeah, and you mentioned about maybe having women on the grid in Formula One and the F1 Academy series as well, which has become over recent years. What have you made of that series as a whole? I don't think there's enough media coverage for it, and it's not very often you see of it being televised. So I think as much as it's there and it's there to promote women in racing, but there's just still not enough coverage for it, and it just being shown to the wider audience of racing. So I think it's, again, just trying to really push through, and just because it is an all-female grid doesn't mean that the racing is not as exciting as it was being an all-male grid sort of thing. Brilliant. Thank you for joining us, Eleanor. That's all we have time for. Take a look at what we have coming up next.
The key for me in anything with choosing a course is to pick something you enjoy.
Data available for anywhere with cycling is normally centred around the negatives, but Kittate I think is particularly bad.
Join us at 12:30 for the next episode. Thanks for joining us on A Game of Two Halves. I've been Iestyn Thomas. Goodbye for now.